Health experts and officials in Joplin team up to promote vaccination efforts in the area.
Millions of Americans could face eviction this summer while billions in federal rental aid goes unused. I'm Caroline Shively in Washington. I'll have that story coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jordan Abby. Numbers are in from this election day as voters in parts of the area decide tax issues impacting schools, emergency services, and community improvements. We begin with a proposal to extend a quarter-cent sales tax in Joplin for 10 years. Voters said yes to that plan to pay for stormwater control and parks. Voters in Carthage were asked whether to allow the city to collect a use tax, which would apply to purchases made online and from out-of-state vendors. It would be the same rate as the local sales tax. If this proposal passes, city officials estimate the tax would generate about $740,000 a year. A Jasper County proposal would allow the 911 board to increase its sales tax rate above the 0.1% it currently receives. Voters approved the plan, allowing a tax of up to 0.25%. Over in Kansas, Columbus, Kansas voters accepted a $14.75 million school bond proposal to fund various improvements in additions to the central campus facility, including new classrooms, safe room, cafeteria, and kitchen. And in Chautauqua, Kansas, voters said yes to a half-cent 5-year sales tax proposal for parks and street maintenance and improvements. We're going to have more election results in a few minutes, and as always, you can find all the election numbers over on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. As the Delta variant continues to spread throughout southwest Missouri and hospitalizations remain high, community leaders are coming together to share information about vaccines. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has more.
The Joplin area is once again finding itself in the midst of the pandemic. That's why Access Family Care in Joplin hosted a community health collaborative to hear from local schools, hospitals, and officials.
That our hospitals are full. This is indeed the truth. We do not have the capacity to keep our friends, our neighbors, our family members here at our local hospitals when people need that acute care. We are having to transfer those individuals hours away.
Local school districts were in attendance and shared their message of keeping their students safe.
And we all share this feeling that we want our communities to get vaccinated, to be safe, and our kids will be back in school in about 3 weeks. And we're planning on doing everything we can to keep them safe just like we did last year.
Joplin Mayor Pro Temp Keenan Cortez was also a speaker and says that while he cannot speak for the city council, that they are keeping a close eye on the number of cases.
We still have our reopening plan on the table, but at this time I don't believe there's any plans to do anything other than what we're currently doing.
One Joplin man in attendance, Jim Stone, was not a part of the panel, but wanted to attend to share why he encourages more people in the area to get vaccinated.
And I have now a 1-year-old granddaughter, it's my first grandchild, and because of the pandemic, I had only been able to see her 2 days in January until this last weekend when I traveled to Indiana for her first birthday, and it's because of the vaccines that I could spend 4 days with her then.
Which is why he says vaccines are so important. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
This coming Thursday, Access Family Care in Joplin is going to host a free vaccine clinic and will also have free COVID-19 testing. More information about this will be available on our website. Again, that's KOAMnewsnow.com. Pitt State announces new COVID-19 mitigation measures. Prior to moving in residence halls, students will have to either submit proof of vaccination, show they've had the virus at some point ever since March, had a negative test within 72 hours of arrival, or be willing to take a COVID-19 test when they arrive for move-in day. University is encouraging faculty, staff, and students to get vaccinated and is going to offer incentives to vaccinated students. Additionally, all faculty, staff, and students will be required to wear masks indoors regardless of vaccination status if social distancing is not possible. This policy will be reviewed every 2 weeks. More information can be found on our website. One of the largest employers in the 4 states announces it is requiring vaccines for its U.S.-based workforce. Tyson Foods made the announcements today. The company also announced it would give $200 to fully vaccinated team members. Tyson's chief medical officer said, quote, getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the single most effective thing we can do to protect our team members, their families, and their communities. The Biden administration is touting a new milestone. 70% of adults have gotten at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. It comes as some states and cities impose new guidelines as a result of rising COVID-19 cases. Fox News correspondent Madeline Rivera has this story from D.C.
We are so incredibly excited for you to be here.
New York University now holding in-person tours for the first time in 16 months, demonstrating an attempt to return to normalcy. There are some changes, though.
The university is requiring all students to be vaccinated.
NYU is one of many colleges nationwide requiring students to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 before coming back to campus. New York City is taking an additional step, saying anyone who wants to go to a restaurant, a gym, or see a performance indoors must show they have at least one dose of the vaccine.
This is a miraculous place, literally full of wonders. And if you're vaccinated, all that's going to open up to you.
70% of adults in the country are partly vaccinated, a big accomplishment, says the Biden administration, but not yet a cause for celebration. To beat the pandemic, the White House is backing vaccine mandates in schools, hospitals, and private companies.
What we see as our objective is to continue to make the vaccine as accessible and available.
The Delta variant is complicating the fight against the virus, increasing the number of breakthrough cases.
These interventions have failed time and time again throughout this pandemic.
Senator Lindsey Graham is one of the latest public figures to catch COVID-19 despite being vaccinated. Graham says he's glad he was vaccinated, adding, without vaccination, I am certain I would not feel as well as I do now.
The White House is touting another achievement. The U.S. has now sent more than 110 million COVID-19 vaccine doses to more than 60 countries, making it a global leader in vaccine donations. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
Renters facing eviction could be on the verge of getting a break from the federal government. Fox News correspondent Caroline Shively has details from Washington.
Tuesday afternoon, President Joe Biden said he has asked the CDC to help renters in America who are facing eviction after a moratorium expired over the weekend.
I've sought out constitutional scholars to determine what is the best possibility that would come from executive action or the CDC's judgment. What could they do that was most likely to pass muster constitutionally?
More than 6 million renters across the U.S. are behind in their payments, according to Moody's data.
That's putting a lot of financial hardship on these families. So if they're not able to pay their rent, then of course the landlords are going to try to evict them.
The CDC under the Trump administration put the moratorium in place because of the COVID pandemic, and President Biden extended it. But landlords challenged the order, saying they need to pay their own bills.
I'm owed over $65,000. I know that I can sue or go through litigation in court, but I do not expect any of that money.
Congress has approved $36 billion for emergency rent aid, but Republicans point out only a very small percentage of it has been distributed.
When people do get evicted, it is because of the incompetence of this administration and the Democrats that are running Washington.
Even with this new moratorium, White House officials say they've asked states to do everything possible to get unused funds to renters and landlords.
We're really pressing states to get this money out and to extend the eviction moratorium.
The Census Bureau reports as of a month ago, 3.6 million people said they faced eviction by early September. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
KOM News at 9 on Fox 14 takes this time now to honor another four-state hero. Lee Manley Jr. served in the U.S. Army from 1951-54. Native of Jasper, Missouri, Manley was stationed in South Korea, earning several awards. And we are proud to thank and salute Lee Manley Jr. He's tonight's four-state hero. Michael Hayslip is next with a complete look at the forecast. And a bit later, Pitt State Baseball hosting a prospect camp, giving players a chance to be evaluated by college coaches. That story in sports.
We've been a little bit spoiled here since the beginning of August with temperatures that have been a far cry from that heat wave we had in July. Topped out at 84 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport today. That record from 105 dates back to 2011. Look at that record low right there. In 1950, the warmest it ever got on August the 3rd was 53 degrees. That's a little chilly for my blood right there. As far as what we're looking at for our high temperatures, that string of 90s that wrapped up the 7th month and opened up the 8th month. Look at that, 84, 84, 84. But still, our 10-day average sits very close to 92 degrees. So it's been nice to have a little cool off. A little light rain on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri is what we saw, but it didn't amount to anything. Now, earlier this morning in the afternoon, it just maintained. It's broken up right now, but right here along the Arkansas-Missouri state line, especially in Berry County, we got about 1/4 of an inch of rain from a little spot that just didn't want to budge. Let's talk about that haze up in the air. Interactive map of air quality. That's a fancy name. We don't need to get into fancy names. Let's go back to where we stand right now. We've got the majority of the 4 states in the yellow category, and then as you push out to the western edge of southeast Kansas, that's in the orange. That doesn't mean anything. If you want to break it down, here's what we need to know. The yellow, air quality acceptable. Those that may be a risk, that's going to be COPD, that's going to be asthma, particularly those who are unusually sensitive to air pollution. That's going to be your young kids. That's going to be your elderly relatives, all right? And we're going to take this into tomorrow as well. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. Now, that orange category, that's where we get a little bit more serious. Those sensitive groups, the COPD and the asthma, may experience health effects, general public less likely to be affected. But now, as we transition into our tomorrow forecast, this is a great thing about this map, folks. airnow.gov, airnow.gov. We can go into tomorrow and see how everything begins to move down to the south of us. Now, granted, it still encompasses portions of southeast Kansas and northeast Oklahoma in that orange category. But then we see the majority of southeast Kansas that's actually been wiped out of the color code. And that's a wonderful thing because our jet stream is grabbing all that particulate matter, what you would call your ash and your smoke from the West Coast wildfires, and it's just grabbing it from the mid-level jet and just taking it due south. So if it's a game of patience and being safe, and that haze should be out of here in a couple of days. Now, what's going to replace it? Heat. So it's like, okay, we don't want to do anything prolonged outside, any strenuous activities while the haze is around. When we can get outside, then we're just going to be right back into the mid-90s here over the weekend. So we're going to have to replace all the air quality warnings with the heat advisories, and that is going to last all into middle of next week as summer has eventually returned here through the second week of August.
Michael Hayslip pulling some overtime, and we thank you, sir. Coming up, the New York Attorney General's office concludes the state's governor did sexually harass several women. Going to have reaction. The New York Attorney General's office detailing results from its months-long investigation into Governor Andrew Cuomo, finding he did sexually harass multiple women, something the governor is denying. Fox News correspondent Brian Innes has more now from New York.
Embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo defiant after a months-long probe found he sexually harassed multiple current and former staff members and state employees.
I want you to know directly from me that I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances.
His denial coming shortly after the New York Attorney General's office released its findings from a months-long independent investigation into the governor, alleging a disturbing pattern of behavior, including inappropriate kisses, touching, and sexual remarks.
Some suffered through unwanted touching and grabbing of their most intimate body parts. Others suffered through repeated, offensive, sexually suggestive, or gender-based comments. A number of them endured both.
During his remarks, Governor Cuomo directly addressing one of his 11 accusers, 25-year-old former aide Charlotte Bennett, claiming he only asked her questions about her sex life to help her deal with past sexual assault.
Charlotte, I want you to know that I am truly and deeply sorry. I was trying to help. Obviously, I didn't.
Cuomo, now under mounting pressure to resign, as a growing number of lawmakers and constituents call for his prosecution.
My thoughts are the governor must resign. Obviously, we know he's going to refuse that. He must be impeached, and the state legislature must move to that immediately.
For months, Cuomo has denied any wrongdoing. His political fate now in the hands of New York's Democrat-controlled state assembly, which is looking into possible impeachment. In New York, Brian Yennis, Fox News.
Next, scientists say there's a known problem from the forgotten.
An environmental crisis is brewing. I'm Jackie Ibanez with a look at the harmful chemicals leaking from the millions of abandoned oil and gas wells across the country. That's just ahead.
Remember not too long ago when you were lucky to find hand sanitizer, eggs, toilet paper? Well, demand has dropped for Clorox wipes and cleaners. This spring, Clorox says its sales declined, with sales in the company's health and wellness division falling 17%. The company says it expects weaker sales overall this year for its bleaches, wipes, and other surface cleaners compared to dramatic demand for its popular products a year ago. Millions of wells, once drilled deep into the earth to extract oil and gas, are now taking a devastating toll on the environment. Fox News correspondent Jackie Ibanez has more on the harmful chemicals leaking from these rusted pipes and why there might not be an easy fix.
Oil and gas help power the country, but they're also helping to destroy it. The Environmental Protection Agency says millions of forgotten oil and gas wells are currently leaking toxins into the land, drinking water, and air, causing problems for wildlife, landowners, and more.
It's like, oh my God, like this whole place is just, Swiss cheese of old oil wells that are falling apart.
The issue is especially real for rancher Ashley Williams Watt, whose land is littered with dozens of old pipes starting to burst, releasing chemicals like methane gas, which dramatically contributes to global warming, and benzene, which can cause cancer.
We suspect 20 more, 40 more, 50 more. Like the unknowns out here, that's the terrifying part.
For years, experts have used cement to seal off pipes once most of the oil and gas is extracted, but they can come undone over time. The EPA estimates there are at least 3.2 million abandoned wells in the U.S., with 2.1 million that were never sealed off. But the crisis goes beyond Watt's property. Leaking abandoned wells exist all around the world.
This isn't a problem isolated to the Permian. This is East Texas, this is Pennsylvania, this is Ohio, this is West Virginia, this is California, this is Gulf of Mexico, this is Aberdeen, Scotland, this is Middle East.
And experts say hundreds of thousands of pipes were drilled before officials started keeping proper records of their locations, making them hard to find and even harder to fix. Jackie Ibanez, Fox News.
Coming up, one family buys a home. Life is good until they learn there's thousands of bees in that house. Ugh. More on this when we come back. A Pennsylvania couple is now about $12,000 poorer. That was the cost of removing close to 500,000 bees. Take a look at that. The Weavers say they knew there were bees in the walls of the 150-year-old farmhouse they bought near Philadelphia in December. In fact, the previous homeowners disclosed that there were bees there. And that didn't bother them too much. Then they say they didn't see any bees and weren't too worried. Then spring came. You know what was loose? Hives once again became active. The Weavers turned to a general contractor and beekeeper who says he relocated about 450,000 honeybees to his farm. The lesson for homeowners and buyers here is no matter how good of a deal on a property, it's always good to get it inspected. But in this case, they knew the bees were there. I guess here some good news is they were honeybees. Honeybees are good, and they were relocated, so that's good. Take a sigh of relief. 30 more minutes, news, weather, and sports coming your way.
A geophysical survey team has come down from Nebraska to visit Fort Scott. I'm Chris Warner. We'll tell you what they're here to do.
An Olympic sprinter speaks out after defecting, while Simone Biles brings home another medal. I'm Greg Balka in London. That's my story. Coming up.
I love this place in Fort Scott. A geophysical survey is taking place in Fort Scott. KOM's Chris Warner went to the fort in Fort Scott and has more on what exactly is being done.
The team is from Lincoln, Nebraska, specifically the Midwest Archaeological Center, which is part of the National Park Service. They're here to survey the Fort Scott National Historic Site with help of some fancy tech.
Gradiometers, electrical resistance, ground penetrating radar, electromagnetic induction.
And what they're using it for is to uncover lost history.
The goal is to locate those features in a non-destructive way. So whereas in the past we might be out here excavating to better understand the site or buildings that we suspect were once here, we're using these instruments to peer below the ground surface and get a better idea about historic features in the archaeology of the site.
There's a few things they know roughly where to look for.
The hospital, which is now the visitor center, had a latrine and a storage shed behind it, so we'll be looking for those two structures. Each of the officers' quarters had a series of buildings, the same buildings, latrines and storage sheds behind them. Some are still standing, but others are no longer standing, but we know they were located behind those buildings, so we'll be looking for those.
Others will be a bit harder to find.
We can see where the buildings once stood. We can lay out what we have known through drawings exactly where they were so that we can really get a picture of how this fort looked back in the 1840s, almost 180 years ago.
Carl Brenner with the fort says it's exciting to learn more about the real Fort Scott.
Most people that visit the fort don't have a clue what all's back here. When I started here, I didn't have a clue what all was back here. This is going to tell us those stories. This is going to share what really happened at the fort, what it really looked like. Is what looks like just a field actually has life, or had life on top of it, but that life is being told through the stories that's below it.
The team will be at the fort for 2 weeks. They're planning to return in the spring following a prescribed burn of the prairie nearby to look for other pieces of lost history. In historic Fort Scott, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Brenner says they're hoping to use what they find combined with old photos to create augmented reality tours where you're going to be able to hold up your phone, see what once was there. Pretty cool. People in Miami are donating blood as part of the Boots and Badges Blood Drive. The event is a friendly competition between the Miami Police and Fire Departments. Anyone 16 years old and older is asked to stop by the Miami Civic Center to donate blood. Donors are going to be given a Boots and Badges t-shirt, a ticket to a local attraction, be entered to win a pair of tickets to see country music artist Granger Smith at Buffalo Run Casino and Resort on Friday.
You know, they realize that police and firemen are heroes, but our blood donors are also heroes because without that bag of blood at the hospital, they're risking their lives to save someone that may not make it at the hospital if we don't have blood there for that patient who might be having a bleeding emergency.
The event will continue tomorrow from noon to 6 p.m. Some prospective and pre-nursing students had the chance to tour Crowder College's nursing program. The presentations and tours were meant to show what it takes to become a registered nurse through the Crowder program.
It's a lot of hard work though, and so we wanted to showcase to students the work that it would take to understand the degree program, to understand the day-to-day in the career and the different skills they would have to learn, and just showcase so they have an idea of what to expect after they get that degree.
Changing times here, Crowder's nursing program now includes a special learning area about COVID and nursing connected together. Cities across the nation and Canada, for that matter, tonight are celebrating Night Out Against Crime. Special events were situated right there over at Schifferdecker Park in Joplin. People could enjoy some free food, drinks, and other family-friendly activities. The program as a whole is meant to heighten crime prevention awareness, generate support for local anti-crime efforts, and strengthen police-community partnerships.
We're very happy to be able to be here this year and be celebrating this time and be out here as a group and as a community, just saying that we're here, we're united, and we're going to stand strong and make it through all that we've been through the last year.
The free food, drinks, and other activities are sponsored by the Joplin Police Department. An Olympic sprinter speaking out for the first time since seeking asylum. Meanwhile, gymnast Simone Biles takes home another medal. Fox News senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Pelkop has more.
Simone Biles tying the record for most Olympic medals won by an American gymnast. She took home her 7th, a bronze, during the balance beam finals on Tuesday. The competition marking a comeback for the athlete who withdrew from multiple events to care for her mental well-being. Biles says this medal means more than her gold.
I'm pretty happy. I wasn't expecting to medal. Just to have one more opportunity to compete at the Olympics meant the world to me.
Meanwhile, an Olympic sprinter at the center of a diplomatic standoff in Tokyo speaking out for the first time. 24-year-old Kristina Timanouskaya says team officials made it clear she would face punishment upon returning home to Belarus. The sprinter was set to run in the 200-meter race on Monday. The day before, she says officials rushed her to the airport to fly home after she criticized team management on social media.
If I were to refuse to return home and run in the 200-meter race, I would be fired and kicked out of the national team. There were also thinly disguised hints that more would await me.
Timanouskaya defected and plans to fly to Poland this week after officials there granted her a humanitarian visa. The International Olympic Committee announcing Tuesday it's conducting an investigation into the case.
I think all of those put together should, I hope, give confidence to all athletes that the IOC is listening to them and acting on any concerns that they may have.
The sprinter says she hopes to continue her career and plans to compete in 2 more Olympic Games. In London, Greg Balcott, Fox News.
A bit later, too much of a good thing.
Americans may be ready to fly, but some U.S. airlines are having trouble keeping up with demand. I'm Mark Meredith in Washington. I'll explain coming up.
We've been a little bit spoiled here since the beginning of August with temperatures that have been a far cry from that heat wave we had in July. Topped out at 84 degrees at Joplin Regional Airport today. That record from 105 dates back to 2011. Look at that record low right there. In 1950, the warmest it ever got on August the 3rd was 53 degrees. That's a little chilly for my blood right there. As far as what we're looking at for our high temperatures, that string of 90s that wrapped up the 7th month and opened up the 8th month. Look at that, 84, 84, 84. But still, our 10-day average sits very close to 92 degrees. So it's been nice to have a little cool off. Little light rain on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri is what we saw, but it didn't amount to anything. Now, earlier this morning in the afternoon, it just maintained. It's broken up right now, but right here along the Arkansas-Missouri state line, especially in Berry County, we got about 1/4 inch of rain from a little spot that just didn't want to budge. Let's talk about that haze up in the air. Interactive map of air quality. That's a fancy name. We don't need to get into fancy names. Let's go back to where we stand right now. We've got the majority of the 4 states in the yellow category, and then as you push out to the western edge of southeast Kansas, that's in the orange. That doesn't mean anything. If you want to break it down, here's what we need to know. The yellow, air quality acceptable. Those that may be a risk, that's going to be COPD, that's going to be asthma, particularly those who are unusually sensitive to air pollution. That's going to be your young kids. That's going to be your elderly relatives, all right? And we're going to take this into tomorrow as well. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. Now, that orange category, that's where we get a little bit more serious. Those sensitive groups, the COPD and the asthma, may experience health effects, general public less likely to be affected. But now, as we transition into our tomorrow forecast, this is a great thing about this map, folks. airnow.gov, airnow.gov. We can go into tomorrow and see how everything begins to move down to the south of us. Now, granted, it still encompasses portions of southeast Kansas and northeast Oklahoma in that orange category. But then we see the majority of southeast Kansas that's actually been wiped out of the color code. And that's a wonderful thing because our jet stream is grabbing all that particulate matter, what you would call your ash and your smoke from the West Coast wildfires, and it's just grabbing it from the mid-level jet and just taking it due south. So it's a game of patience and being safe, and that haze should be out of here in a couple of days. Now, what's going to replace it? Heat. So it's like, okay, we don't want to do anything prolonged outside, any strenuous activities while the haze is around. When we can get outside, then we're just going to be right back into the mid-90s here over the weekend. So we're going to have to replace all the air quality warnings with the heat advisories, and that is going to last all into middle of next week as summer has eventually returned here through the second week of August.
Michael, thanks again. Coming up in sports, Kansas City Chiefs putting on pads for the first time at training camp. Also, how Pitt State Baseball's Prospect Camp benefits high school players and the university. Jacob Leonard has that and more next.
Pittsburgh State Baseball gets a chance to check out potential future Gorillas today and show off the facilities on campus. And Coach Fornelli and the Gorillas hit the field for Prospect Camp today, giving high schoolers an opportunity to get in front of college coaches and earn a shot to play at the next level. Around 60 high school players hit the field at Pittsburgh State Tuesday, hoping to catch the eyes of college coaches.
A good opportunity to show what I can do so then I can get my name out there and just play ball.
We have 4 other college coaches here, 1 Division I, 3 junior colleges, so they're going to get a good look-see today to see where they might fit in.
I've just always been playing baseball ever since I was 6, and I had so much love for it, and I just love playing it. It's a good way to escape from life, just come out here and play ball and make new friends and just compete.
Pitt State's Prospect Camp gives players a chance to be seen and evaluated by Coach Fornelli and those coaches.
I'm over here just, to get better and learn new things and just show these colleges what I can do and just be a better player.
They'll all get an evaluation sheet at the end of the day to kind of see where they fit.
The players are not the only ones who benefit from the camp.
We'll find a guy or 2 that we really like today. Now, getting them is a whole different thing, but we wouldn't do these things if we couldn't find a guy or 2, and hopefully we find 5 to 10, you never know.
And if that doesn't work out, it's still a chance for Pittsburgh State to show off its facilities and the rest of what PSU has to offer.
We're so excited to have people on campus. We have a beautiful campus, have unreal facilities. Like you said, we're going to put them in the bus and a team at a time and take them over to see the plaster in the weight room and kind of see the campus and not only just see our facilities but the football field and all that stuff. Maybe it's a kid that chooses to come to school to Pitt State, maybe not to play baseball, just go to school and be on our great engineering program or construction science or whatever it may be. We got a ton of options for guys and hopefully our facilities and our school will show off well today, and hopefully we'll have some future Gorillas.
Now, the camp started with individual pro-style drills in the morning before putting the players in game situations in the afternoon. Now, in the major leagues tonight, the Royals kick off a series against the White Sox, aiming to avoid a 4th straight loss. Kansas City has scored just once in the last 2 games. Tonight, just one right now, trailing 7-1 in the 8th. Ryan O'Hearn has the lone RBI of the night for Kansas City. In the National League, the Cardinals, 1 game over 500 coming into the night. They open a 3-game series against the Braves. That one is in the top of the 9th. Right now, Cards getting shut out 6-0. The Kansas City Chiefs put on the full pads today for the first time at training camp. The Kansas City is just 11 days away from their first preseason game and less than 6 weeks away from their regular season opener. Now, the Chiefs start the preseason on the 14th on the road against the 49ers. They have 7 practices until they hit the field for that one. Today, though, putting on the pads is a step in the right direction and something the players have been looking forward to.
Good to get the guys in pads. I thought they worked hard. It was all flood period today. There were no live periods today, but I thought their effort was where it needed to be, and they challenged each other.
It's different when you put them pads on to where you just got helmets on, and everything was smooth.
Yeah, that first day is always fun. Whenever we're out here in jerseys and whatnot, that's not football. And, some guys can't show unless they're physical. Like, physicality is part of the game. Physicality allows you to play.
I love putting on the pads, just able to get more physical. So, it was good to get physical and then just conditioning as well. I like to think I'm good in shape, but when you put the pads on, it'll wake you up a little bit.
And that's a look at sports. We're back with more news after this.
More and more Americans are taking to the sky, but as the nation's airports are bustling, many airlines are having a difficult time managing the influx. Fox News correspondent Mark Meredith reports on the headaches happening on the tarmac.
It's up, and away. The TSA reporting a new pandemic record for air travel with more than 2.2 million passengers flying on Sunday. It's the largest number of travelers screened since February 2020. While more people are flying, airlines are facing some turbulence on the ground. Staffing shortages tied to the pandemic are forcing some airlines to cancel hundreds of flights, leaving stranded passengers to ask, what happened to the friendly skies?
This was the worst experience ever.
Low-cost carrier Spirit says both bad weather and, quote, operational problems caused them to cancel roughly 300 flights. And as the departure board lit up red, so did the countless passengers forced to wait hours in long lines just to get home.
This line, I started back there last night at midnight. I got to the front at 9 a.m. this morning.
So you were on the line for 9 hours?
9 hours. I'm about to cry.
With vaccinations on the rise, international travel is also ramping up. Fully vaccinated Americans can now fly to the United Kingdom without being required to quarantine upon arrival.
We're showing that the vaccine is our passport to freedom, that we can start to open up to other countries.
While travel demand is booming, officials are eager to stop the virus from spreading any further. New York now plans to mandate all airport and public transit workers get vaccinated or face weekly testing. In Washington, Mark Meredith, Fox News.
Got some news about a new Woody Harrelson movie, Hollywood Nation, coming your way. Grammy singer Lizzo making an announcement, and Reese Witherspoon's new business deal. Fox's Steve Rappaport has the latest from the Hollywood Nation.
Harrelson transforms, Lizzo teases, and Witherspoon makes a deal in the Hollywood Nation. Reese Witherspoon has sold her production company, Hello Sunshine. The actress who co-founded the business in 2016 shared on Instagram it was sold to a media company backed by private equity giant Blackstone Group, Inc. Terms of the deal were not disclosed, but according to the Wall Street Journal, it was purchased for about $900 million. Hello Sunshine is behind hits including HBO's Big Little Lies, Hulu's Little Fires Everywhere, and Apple TV Plus's The Morning Show. Good news for Lizzo fans. The Grammy winner teased her Instagram followers with the news that new music is on the way. The 33-year-old singer-rapper revealed she's dropping Rumors August 13th, her first new song in 2 years. Woody Harrelson mutates into the evil symbiote in Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Sony Pictures released a new trailer revealing a better look at Harrelson's character, Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer who turns into the supervillain known as Carnage. He will face off with lead star Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom when the film debuts in theaters September 24th. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Wow, how about that movie, huh? Sweet dreams. That's our time for tonight. Thanks for joining us. If you've ever wanted to go swimming with dolphins, well, we're going to leave you with video of just that. How awesome is that? Be safe. Do this all again tomorrow. See you then.